Alright guys, so here's a thing I meant to be filming. This is my T680 Kenworth. It's a 2018. It's only got 50,000 miles on it. Well, about 52, 53. And it's not a bad truck, I'll tell you what. I've actually really enjoyed driving these things. I had two Freightliner Cascadias when I drove for Schneider. I was not impressed whatsoever. But these things, man, they ride so smooth. I mean, I got this truck at the company brand new with only 232 miles on it. So pretty much all the road miles that's been put on it have been put on it by me. Now normally, you know, this was a lot cleaner only a few days ago, but you can see already, you know, it gets dirty. It happens, it's trucking. You know, you go to shippers that's got muddy lots, or truck stops that's not got paved lots. And you know, it happens. There's my little pooch. Say hi, Marley. And normally, now I got, what is it? I got some all-purpose cleaner that I used for this floor. And this is only dirty like this because today, you know, I got out to a truck stop and you know, the lot was pretty dirty. What's up, Marley? Woof! Speak. Alright, good boy. No, you ain't going outside. I already took you outside. You gotta clean your eyes out. But now normally this stuff stays pretty clean. These floorboards here, these running boards, are actually kind of hard to clean. They're actually a pain in the ass, if you ask me. But otherwise, here, I'll turn the truck off. That way you can hear me better. Otherwise, I mean, the truck is fine. You know, I got an automatic 12-speed transmission. And this 12-speed is alright. If you ask me, it could be better. Like the 12-speed, it's just too much. Especially for a truck governed at 65. I mean, you capped off at 65. By the time you're doing 60, it's changing over to 12th gear. And once you get in that 12th gear, it really doesn't like to pull at that gear. It's really like a cruising gear. But you know, you don't have a very high top speed, so the cruising feels fine at 65. But in between 60 and 65 is not that great. So otherwise, I mean, it's a pretty sweet truck. The Cascadias are pretty nice too. They got the newer ones, the newer model Cascadias, the 2019s and 18s. They're pretty nice looking. They still ride pretty rough, if you ask me. The truck I was actually supposed to get before I got this one was going to be a Freightliner Cascadia. One of the 2018, 2019 models. Actually, I think it was a 2019, but that truck had 50,000 miles on it before I even got it. And when I went over there to go get my truck, you know, the Cascadia is pretty sweet. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a nice looking truck on the inside. However, instead of having like standard gauges like you do here, this here is a screen, and the gauges are artificial. They're up on a screen. They're not like that. You know, and you can switch through. But I like the regular, like standard gauges like this. I just kind of like the older school style of that rig. But now, a lot of you probably know that Kenworth has already released the W990. And the W990 has the same cockpit as this thing. This whole dash setup is exactly the same. as the W990. They basically took a T680 and put a big old long hood out on the front of it. Changed out the grill to make it look different. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I think that's a little bit cheap. The W9s look a lot better in my opinion. The W990 just looks kind of weird. But, yeah, they basically just took a Kenworth T680 and put a big old long hood on it. The dash setup is relatively the same, I think, except for instead of this extends out and they've got like 4 gauges over here or something. But other than that, I mean, it's the same truck. It's got this for flipping through the menu. It's got all these buttons down here. It's got the same gauge set up here with the HUD up here. And, you know, the W990 looks alright, but I'd much prefer to take a W9 over a W990. And, you know, of course, that it has to do a lot with weight, and everybody knows that the W9 was getting phased out anyway, because Kenworth had pretty much already cut out their whole production of it, unless you were special ordering them. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, you know, kind of the death of a legend, but the W900, because it's heavy, runs a lot smoother than this T680 ever will. Don't get me wrong, this truck is heavier than a Cascadia. Not by much, but it is heavier than a Cascadia. You know, it's got a little bit longer frame on it, because that's how Kenworth likes to roll their rigs. They like to put a little bit longer frame on these to even out the riding, so it feels a little bit smoother. And you got, on the sleeper, there's actually 2 bags. You saw them back there a minute ago. It's got 2 bags, 2 airbags on the sleeper, and 2 rods. And that helps with the suspension dampening and keeping the ride pretty smooth. I mean, now you take a Cascadia into New Jersey. The Cascadia will dang near slap your kidney at your throat. That truck was not fun to drive on any surface that wasn't exactly flat, because that truck, the suspension on it is not very good, whereas these Kenworths have much nicer suspension in my opinion. You know, when I was at Schneider, like I said, I had two Freightliner Cascadias, and then they took me out of those and put me in a Kenworth T680. And from that point on, I've pretty much decided that it'll have to be a T680 or better to get me to come into a company as far as the equipment, because these trucks offer a lot more in terms of driver comfort. You know, we're out here a month at a time or more sometimes. You know, some guys stay out here 3 months at a time. You know, you want a truck that's more like home. You don't want to be stuck in a truck that doesn't have an inverter, number one. Number two, it doesn't have 110 outlets, because you can't plug a regular refrigerator up to it like you can on my truck. And number three, you just want something that's more homey. You know, you don't want to climb into a truck that feels like it's made of plastic. Don't get me wrong, this truck is made of plastic, by the way. I don't know if you can tell just by looking. I mean, the chrome is fake. It's all plastic. But it looks nice. You know, it's nicer to look at all day than some bland gauge up on the thing that looks like it was just cheaply capped on there with some little clips on the sides of the caps over the gauges and stuff. And you get a little bit more on the gauge package than you do with a standard Cascadia. And I'm not talking about the new model Cascadias, but I'm talking about the older model Cascadias. Not the ones with the nicer looking hood on them, but the older model. And that truck just felt so cheap to me. I mean, it really kind of boggles the mind at how cheap they must have been building these things to get them so light. I mean, there's a reason why they're light, and it's because these companies want them that way, so they can pull more weight. You know, from Procter & Gamble especially, you know, you get a Procter & Gamble load, it might weigh 46,000 pounds in the box. And that's going to rack up to 80,000 pounds real quick, unless you've got a really light rig to pull it with. I mean, a trailer by itself, it don't matter what trailer you got. Trailers are 20,000 pounds already. And then you got a truck that's maybe, I want to say this truck is supposed to be like 17,000 pounds. And then you go ahead and throw 47,000 pounds in that sucker. That load gauge, if you can see it here, the suspension load gauge here, that thing will be sitting right about in the middle between 50 and 100 or more. And that is not good. You know, when you're pulling a load, you want it to be right at about the 50 mark or just at that first tick. You can carry it at the second tick above, but no more than that. Above the 50, that is. But otherwise, you know, those Freightliners are built light for a reason, because companies did that to cut down on the rate of freight and hauling more for less, you know, paying less for their trucks. And those W9s and the Peterbilt 379s, 389s, they're all very, very heavy trucks. Real big steel frames, you know, steel bodies with maybe a fiberglass hood. Those trucks are very heavy, but they last. They're well built. They're comfortable. They look nice. You know, who doesn't want to be in a truck that looks nice? It's not all about, you know, I don't want to say it. I don't want to say that it's not all about how much freight you can haul, because it kind of is. But at the same time, you want to feel at home in the truck you're driving. You don't want to be in a truck that doesn't feel comfortable. But I'm not saying don't go to these mega carriers because they've got Freightliner Cascadias. That's not what I'm saying at all. But because, you know, everybody's got to do their time. You know, you got to pay your dues as a truck driver when you first come out here. And for me, that was driving a Freightliner Cascadia 2013 with a 10-speed manual. And during the winter, my thermometer would cut off the truck because it wouldn't let me idle at negative 17 degrees. I slept in the bunk of that Cascadia at negative 17 degrees underneath 4 layers of clothes and boots, underneath 2 layers of covers and a heated blanket, you know, with my toboggan on and stuff. And that, you know, that was paying my dues. That's paying my dues. I paid my dues to be here. I don't want to drive something that I'm not going to be comfortable with, and I don't want to ever have to go through that ever again, because I know my worth as a driver is much more than that. And my worth as being a human being is much more than that. You know, there's a point where it comes to being very inhumane and not very humanitarian to have somebody in a truck like that. So that's just something to think about, guys. But otherwise, that's all there is to the game. You know, all you can do is just drive and do your best. Pay your dues, and then when you get out here and maybe you switch to another company after spending a year or 2 years at the first company you're at, because you're going to need to get some longevity before you decide to switch over. You don't want to try to switch over after 6 months. That's not paying your dues, guys. That's not paying your dues at all. Everybody has to go through the shitty part about trucking, but nobody wants to acknowledge it. So that's my acknowledgement of the shitty side of trucking. You know, when you first come out here, you got to pay your dues. You know, you just got to suffer through it. And that's all there is to it. But, alright guys, I'm going to get out on the road. And it looks like my clock just counted back up for me, so I got about 4 hours drive left. And I'll catch y'all later on tonight when I stop. See ya.